After heating exclusively with firewood for a number of years, we've been trying to improve the flow and the systems that we work with, and we're at a stage now, there's some approaches and techniques that I work with that I think are worth sharing with folks, including this really great trick working with a tire, and new to me but quite promising way of splitting out really fine kindling. So stick with us, I'm going to share some of these notes. The key thing I want to convey in this video is the importance of using a tire, or just at least knowing about a tire for when it comes to splitting wood. For many years, probably for about 10 years or so, I split wood on just a straight up stump. A lot of you have done the same thing, and as those of you that split firewood know, every time you go to split a piece of wood, and the wood gets ready to go, in this case it's staying together nicely, but there's inevitably that. Now, for each piece of firewood you're splitting, not only are you picking up the wood and putting it on the log, but now you're getting down to the ground and lifting that wood, putting it back on the stump, balancing it, and doing it again. You can see there's a lot of snow around. I shovel pretty thoroughly right around here, but each time that piece of firewood lands on the ground, it's getting covered in snow. That firewood you've cured for a year or 2 years is now getting wet right before it goes inside. There's a better way. The good news is there's no real modification to what you probably already have with your setup. The stump that you have is great. It just needs a little something more. In this case, I took a tire that was flat. I think we were replacing some really bald tires on an old car. And if your stump is the size of the tire you have or larger, simply drop the tire right on the stump. In our case, the stump is a little small, and so what I did is took a piece of scrap locust. In this case, a good hardwood is nice. Now it's split over time, but that actually doesn't even matter. A good sturdy board helps it span a smaller stump, and I just simply drove some screws in. Now we're ready to go. If you want to leave this tire out, what I would encourage you to do is on the bottom side, go in with a box cutter or a drill and drill out holes periodically so it can drain water. Otherwise you've got ice and water splashing on your firewood when you split. But other than that, a free and incredibly great upgrade. Let me show you how it works. The first thing to do is I like to pack the tire with as much firewood as I can that needs to be split. If I can fill it out and get it nice and tight, then the splitting process is a lot faster and easier. If I've got this nice and tight, it's ready to go. I can split a whole bunch of these pieces of wood very easily now, and the tire holds them all in position. What I like to do is put the shorter pieces on my side so I don't have to walk all the way around rather than reaching up and over. This is all black locust. It's aged, and so it's relatively hard to split. Some have a few splits from when I stored it a ways back. But now every time I strike with the splitting tool, the tire is going to hold them in position and keep them next to each other. And you can see how much faster and easier it is to split this way. I haven't reached down once to pick up a piece of firewood off the ground. You get the idea. What's beautiful about this is these larger pieces of firewood, this dried locust, by being able to split it over and over and over again, I'm creating some really fine firewood. A lot of this can be used for kindling. And what we'll do is we have 2 of these. One we leave inside next to the wood stove drying out. The other one we leave out here so we can reload it with fine stuff as we split. It's so easy to sort through that. The larger pieces, splitting them a little bit but keeping them intact, makes it easy to handle this as one piece of firewood, but the fire can get into it faster and cleaner, and it burns a lot hotter this way without having to move 20 separate pieces. The other thing we can do is, because all these little bits and pieces that are out here are staying dry, we can keep our little retorts for making biochar out here and pack them with this dry material. If you're interested in making biochar in your wood stove, I'm going to link here. I talk about this in greater detail in another video. So we're splitting our firewood, getting it to run cleaner and hotter, way less smoke coming out of the chimney, way more heat in our home. We're getting material for making biochar in the form of bark and debris, and we're generating some kindling, all without having to get down into the snow and on the ground. Thanks, Tyre. It also makes it easy to load it. In our case, we like to use a wheelbarrow. We bring it into the garage, and then from the garage we can bring a whole wheelbarrow of wood next to the wood stove. And by keeping it all together in the Tyre, it's a very direct handoff. Huge bundles right into the wheelbarrow. If the logs are too big or too knotted or too difficult to split, whatever, we just put them right into the wheelbarrow. Those make great logs for overnight to keep us warm for 8 hours. We don't want just fine material, but this really makes it a lot easier to get a lot of that to run the stove really clean, especially if you have unseasoned wood. The more you split it, the cleaner it's going to burn. Ideally, this is 2-year-old wood. Ideally, you wait 2 years, 3 years or more, but if it's not cured, you really want to split it more. This fall, I invested in another tool that has been quite helpful for us. It's called the Kindling Cracker, and I found this one on eBay as a used or an open box one. You can definitely find them many places other than Amazon. And what I like about this is I can drop this into the same Tyre setup, and for making really fine kindling, I find it's very quick and quite safe. Normally what I would do is I'd put the kindling down and use a hatchet and try to split it and move my hand out of the way. In this case, I can simply drive it down. It's basically a hatchet that's upside down. And what's nice about this is it lets me generate a ton of really fine material. This gets fires started so easily. So for folks that have that are just learning how to split wood, or maybe younger people or older folks that might have a little bit of limited mobility or eyesight, what have you, this is a great way to put the wood where you want it and tap your way through it and keep your hands away from the blade and get accurate splitting while you go. And if you have that Tyre, it catches the wood for you instead of letting it drop on the ground and into the snow. This is a nice tool. If you can find one used, 60, 70 bucks, it feels really worthwhile. We really enjoy heating with wood heat, and we hope you do too. Hopefully some of these ideas have been useful to you. Comment below, do you do things like this? Do you have systems that are way better than this, or way more thoughtful, way better design? Maybe some links to videos where folks are doing something that's more interesting. Be happy to hear from you, and let's have some conversation around it. Thanks.